Cool. So here's where we're at, guys, right? Today, we're going to learn how to get a steady flow of commercial listings in 30 days or less. Oftentimes, like I said, sometimes you might be doing the right things, but you're not maybe sequencing in the proper way. Maybe you're not doing all of them 100%. So we're going to go through a very simplistic way of looking at things to help you understand what maybe you might be missing. Maybe you're only just a little bit off, but we're going to go through that in just a sec. Okay. So guys, what we do at CRE Basic Training is different from everybody, okay? Most commercial places are going to tell you, you got to pick a small geographical area. You got to pick one property type. You got to go in and you got to make yourself a part of every single commercial deal that happens, whether it's leasing, whether it's working with buyers, whether it's working with sellers, blah, 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 blah. Guess what, guys? If you want average results, do what the average broker does, okay? The reality of it is a lot of the brokers that are teaching that methodology came up in the pre-internet age. What that means is the ones that came up in the pre-internet age, information was scarce. So in order to become a neighborhood expert or whatever, you had to sit there and talk to this owner and talk to that person and speak to that broker and be a part of that sale and be a part of that lease and blah, blah, blah. The reality of it is, guys, we are now in a post-internet age, okay? You click a button, you can print out a report and know every transaction that's happened in the submarket in the last 5 years at the click of a button. So you no longer have to...
The Christian Peter webinar?
Yeah, if you could go ahead and mute whoever just came on, I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, so that's the point, guys. The bottom line is this. For those of you that were taught by someone that came in the 90s, in the 80s, 70s even, right? What's going to wind up happening is you're going to wind up adopting they're going to try to teach you the ways that they learned, which there's nothing wrong with it, but those are just, you're just going to get average results from it, okay? Now that we can push a button and get an entire report, what you wind up doing, guys, is you wind up being able to fast forward your learning process, okay? You don't have to limit yourself geographically. You don't have to pick out a small little area and get to know every single person in there and get to catalog every single building and knock on every door. You don't need to do that stuff anymore, guys. There's a much, much better way. So again, we take the entire brokerage model and we turn it up on its head, okay? We don't limit you geographically. We don't make you lease properties. We don't make you work with buyers, okay? All we do is take you exactly to the top, to the highest producing activities. And I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so number one, or no, I should say number four, stop limiting yourself geographically. You don't have to do it anymore, okay? Now, the next thing is, guys, stop doing leasing and stop working with buyers. Folks, as a show of hands, do me a favor. How many of you ever had a bad experience working with a buyer, whether it's on the residential or the commercial side? Do me a favor. Just type +1 in the chat if you've ever had a bad experience, okay? Okay, there we go. Yep, Alicia's raising her hand. See, guys, the point is, every single one of you, I promise, has at least 10 stories of working with buyers that ran you around and around and around. And at the end of the day, they used up your gas, used up your time, and either ghosted you, didn't call you back, or said, oh, you know what? I'm just going to work with my brother-in-law. But thanks for showing me around, right? How many of you experienced that? No mas, guys. No mas. The thing is, excuse me, you can look at the pyramid, the activities of a broker, like a pyramid, right? At the bottom, you have, working your sphere of influence, kind of working whatever kind of falls in your lap. And then the next rung up is like, leasing. The next rung up is working with buyers. The next one is off-market deals. But if you really want to get to the tippy top of earnings, you want to get to the tippy top of productivity, you'll find yourself working with sellers and working exclusively with sellers. The highest paid brokers in the industry do not waste their time working with buyers. The buyers that they will work with are buyers that they've already sold their property out from underneath them, and it's a 1031 exchange, and they got to find them an up-leg property, right? But what they're not going to do is, they're not going to take on a buyer, let them run them all around town and use up their gas and ghost them. Not going to happen, right? That is a hallmark of an agent who hasn't discovered how important it is to work with sellers. And the more you can work with sellers, your income will accelerate. I tripled my business in a 24-month period by going strictly working with sellers. You work with sellers only, guys. You control your time, you control your income, you control your business. That's the best way to make the most amount of money possible, okay? So as you guys are hopping on, if you could do me a small favor, make sure you're muted. I'd appreciate it. So guys, again, stop doing leasing and stop working with buyers. If you continue to do so, you're not going to be utilizing your time to the highest degree as possible, right? How many of you guys want to earn $100,000 next year, $200,000 next year, $300,000 next year, $400,000 next year? Okay. Yeah. Those of you got your hands up. Okay. $500,000 next year. I promise you, you're not doing it leasing and you're not doing it working with buyers. You want to make $500,000 or more in this business year in, year out. You're not going to be spending the majority of your time doing those activities. You're going to be spending the majority of your time working with sellers. That's what's going to get you there, guys. Okay. So if you are currently working with buyers, fire them. Joking. Refer them out to a friend. Get a piece of it. If you have a relationship, I don't want you to sever relationships, but at the same time, you have to know what your time is worth. And most times, if you're working with buyers or you're doing leasing, it's not going to be what your time is worth. By the way, guys, let's just do a quick, simple, quick math, okay? Take whatever you want to earn next year, in the next, like, say, 12 months, right? And divide that number by 2,000. So for instance, let's say you wanted to make $200,000, right? 200,000 divided by 2,000, and that's going to give you your hourly rate. Okay, in this case, your hourly rate, 200,000 divided by 2,000 is $100 an hour. So if you want to make $200,000 a year, you have to be doing work that's $100 an hour or more, 40 hours a week. You with me, guys? So do me a favor, put that in the chat. You know what your guys' hourly rate is. You know, just throw it up there. I think it'll help for everybody to see kind of what that looks like, right? Because at the end of the day, guys, if you are doing anything less than your hourly rate, what you want your hourly rate to be, it's going to drag down what your earnings potential is. So you cannot be doing things that allow you to pull down that average, right? So Scott Gilbert says $200 per hour. That means he wants to earn $400,000 in this next year. Guess what, guys? That means he cannot do anything, you know, that's going to drag down the average. If not, he's just not going to have enough hours in the day. Okay. And not unless he wants to work 80 hours a week, right? But none of us want to do that. More of us want more money and more time to ourselves, right? So perfect. Thank you, Scott, for letting us know. That's a perfect example, guys. So what that means you need to do is you need to be working the hours that you are working. And if you guys are hopping on, if you could do me a favor, make sure you're muted. But for those of you that are hopping on and are still working with leasing and still working with buyers, very, very important to curtail those activities and start putting your most amount of focus on sellers as possible. You guys with me? All right. Okay. So next one, do not limit yourself to one or two property types. Again, going back to that old school kind of brokerage, mentality, old school kind of business plan. It's find this little square, find one property type, do every lease, do every sale, work with every buyer, work with every seller. Ain't the way to do it, guys, right? What we are going to do is encourage you to become specialists at sales, specialists at working with sellers, okay? Because you can't make enough money. Your average hourly rate, you're doing leasing, it's going to pull it down. You know, all things being equal, you could spend 12 hours doing a lease, right? Okay. You're 12 hours doing a lease and you can make 3 to 5 grand. Okay. Or you can do 12 hours doing a sale and you can make 30 to 50 grand. You tell me what's going to be going to push that your average hourly price up. Okay. So very, very important, guys. Very, very important. Okay. So do not limit yourself to one or two property types. What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to show you what you need to do in order to get good at multiple property types. You obviously need to understand about the property types, but learning valuation. 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2, okay? And whether it's a multifamily property, whether it's an industrial property, there are some differences between them, you know? But on the whole, if you can get good at valuation, you'll be able to understand how to underwrite these properties. And from there, you'll be able to understand what it takes to value the properties. It's like a mechanic. A good mechanic, it doesn't matter whether he opens up the hood, it's a Ford or a Chevy or a Dodge or a Chrysler. It doesn't matter, right? Why? Because they all have fuel injectors. They all have pistons. They all have crankshafts. They all have batteries. They all have starters, right? It's the same thing. They're slightly different. Maybe they're in a different place. It's no different with different property types, guys. When you get comfortable with the process of valuation, It doesn't matter whether it's an apartment building, an industrial property, an office building, or a retail property. It makes no difference, right? Math, 1 and 1 is always going to equal 2, folks. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, guys, if you're limiting yourself to 1 or 2 property types, I would highly recommend learning more property types, because what that does is it opens the amount of opportunities you have moving forward. And more opportunities means more opportunity to make money. The more you can specialize in sales, working strictly with sellers, the more money you're going to make ultimately. Plain and simple. Okay. And then the other thing is, guys, don't work one more day without a game plan. If when you arrive at the office, you don't know who you're supposed to call, you don't know why you're supposed to be calling them, you don't know what you're supposed to be saying to them, you don't know what the intended outcome is of that call, that's just a random act of violence. It's what we call in the industry, right? Cold calls with no real intent, that's a random act of violence. So what we want to impress upon you, you have to know who you're calling, what you're saying, why you're saying it, what your intended outcome is, and what you want the next step to be. Okay, guys? If you can't answer all 5 of those very, very specifically, then you do not have a detailed enough game plan. You don't have a game plan that you're going to follow over and over again. Because think about it, guys. When you have clarity, it's like wiping your glasses clean. You can see everything for exactly what it is. But if you don't have clarity, you're just going to be kind of poking in the dark, not knowing. And guess what? Sometimes, a broken clock, yeah, it's right twice a day. But I'd rather know exactly where I'm going. And the higher degree of clarity you have is so much more helpful in helping you get to the level of earnings that you want to get to. So please do not go another day without a game plan. Very, very important. So think about it this way, guys. Insanity. What's Albert Einstein quoted as saying? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. How many of you have ever gotten to January 1st and said, you know what? New year, new me. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to, make this year is going to be my year. And by February, March, April, it's the same thing, same as last year, same earnings, more or less, maybe another deal or 2 in the pipeline, but nothing significantly increased, right? What we want to do, guys, is want to impress upon you. It's very, very important for you to get a different result. You have to do things differently. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. So we're here to tell you, guys, until you start doing things differently, maybe it's the sequencing, maybe it's your focus, maybe it's your game plan. It could be a combination of all those things. Until you start doing things differently, you won't be able to get a different result or a vastly different result. You might get a slightly different result, but if you want increase, you want to be able to double or triple your business, you have to do things significantly differently and put in massive action. So any questions on this so far, guys? By all means, feel free to pop in and let me know if you have any questions. Give me a sec. All right, see. Okay. Cool. All right. So getting back to it, guys. Next is the question I have for you guys is, okay, knowing that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. What is going to change in your life and in your business if you do not? Okay. The thing is, what will I do different to get a different result? What are you going to do starting tomorrow that you're going to do differently than you've been doing so that you can get a different result? Guys, as a show of hands, if you are not getting the results that you want to out of your business, then you need to do something differently. The question is, what do you need to be differently? But be doing differently. The bottom line is this, guys. If you continue to get the same results over and over again, you need to change something. Brian Harris, he says, change my mindset. Brian's mindset is so much different than it was 45, 60 days ago. It's night and day. And guess what? The man is picking up the phone. He's making dials. He's getting meetings, and he's going to be putting large sums of money in his pocket because he's creating so many opportunities for himself. He's living proof. Am I right, Brian? Give me a thumbs up if you agree with that. Your mindset has changed entirely in the last 2 months. You with me, buddy? Yep. Rosa says, I will focus more on sellers as much as possible and give away my buyers. Absolutely. Guys, that's an important thing, guys. It's okay. It's okay to give away your buyers. Send them to somebody that you trust and someone that you can give them to get a referral fee from, very, very important. Okay. But at the end of the day, guys, you have to do something different in order to get a different result. Someone else said, no more leases. Absolutely, guys, leases. Trust me, and I've been doing leasing since 2003, right? I know it like the back of my hand. It just doesn't pay nearly as well as sales. So it's low hanging fruit. And if you got to keep the lights on, sure, but you don't want to be doing it long term. If you're really, really trying to get to the point where you're earning the highest levels of income as you can, you gotta cut leasing out, or limit it. Just don't make it the priority, like the majority of your business. Very important. Now, a lot of your brokers might have trouble with this. I understand that, but at the end of the day, is your broker going to fund your 401k? Is your broker going to pick up your car payment if you miss it this month? No, you have to be thinking for yourself at a certain point, right? So time, guys, is our most valuable resource. Okay, what would you do to go back in time? To go back in time and take all the knowledge that's in your brain and go backwards 5 years, go backwards 10 years. How much further would you be if you could take the knowledge that's in your mind now and bring that back 10 years ago? Would you do some things differently? Right? Very, very important. How much would you benefit by having years of experience instantly? If you could just snap your fingers and be to the point where you have the knowledge that you want to earn the type of money you want. Because at the bottom line is, guys, if you're not already making the money you want to make, you don't have the skills and you don't have the knowledge to make what you want to make. You with me? So it's clear to see, guys, if you are not making the type of money you want, it's because you haven't acquired the skills that you want yet. So if you want to fast forward to the point where you're making the good money, you need to acquire the skills. Think of it this way, guys. This is what we call our gap. Everybody, do me a favor, humor me. Put it in the comments, right? Put what you want to make in the next 12 months, okay? Just throw it out there. This is the circle of trust. It's cool. Just throw it out there. No one's going to care, right? And then what I want you to do is, if you're brave enough, tell me what you made last year, or just tell me whatever you want to make next year and subtract what you made last year and give me the deficit. Put that in there. So you don't put any personal information up. So if you want to make 200 next year, you made 75 last year, your gap, the deficit is 125,000, right? Scott says 180K. Someone else says 150K. Okay. Matt says 250K and about 100K. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay. I really appreciate it. Okay. For instance, Matt, you said 250 next year, 150 last year. What the difference is $100,000. What that $100,000, that represents the gap between the knowledge of where you want to go and where you currently are, right? So you're missing certain skills that allow you to make that 250, right? Rosa says her gap's 100,000. Alicia said her gap's at 200,000. Scott says $150,000 gap. What that gap is, guys, it's the 6 inches between your ears. It's what you don't know that you are paying life. You are paying for every single one of you that isn't earning what they want to be earning. You are paying life a fee, right? In Scott's case, you're paying life $150,000 a year to not know or not do the things that you need to do in order to be successful. Rosa, you're paying life $100,000 a year to not know the things that you want to do. Let's talk about this, guys. Let's just say it's $100,000, okay? $100,000 divided by 12, that's $8,500 per month. That's more than $2,000 a week for you not to know the skills that you need to get to the earnings that you want, okay? Show of hands, how many of you have ever like broken 6 figures, okay? How many of you have broken mid 6 figures, made 3, 4, 5, 600,000? How many of you have broken 7 figures, okay, guys? All of those things are possible in commercial real estate, in brokerage, but you have to have the knowledge, you have to have the skills, and you have to have the game plan. So if your gap is even as small as $100,000, guys, it's costing you more than $2,000 a week to not know that. Want to break that down further? That's $300 a day it's costing you not to know the skills that you need to know to get to the earnings where you want to go. Think of what your life would be different, how different it would be if you were able to make the money you wanted to make, if you're able to control your income and make the money you want to. Very, very powerful, guys. you are paying life every single year that you aren't making the money that you want because there's a deficit in between where you are and where you want to go.